Darkfire Audio presents Call of the Herald, Book 1 in the Dawning of Power trilogy, written by Brian Rathbone, narrated by Chris Snellgrove. Chapter 14. The bitter taste of betrayal can be purged only by fire. Emeteri, slave. The next few days were long and miserable while they waited at the campsite to heal, taking time when they could to gather supplies. They were not in very good shape for hunting, so they settled for gathering fruits and nuts. The weather was clear and warm, and light breezes carried the many scents of summer. The comet was no longer visible in the night sky, and no new comets showed themselves. Catrin wondered if it had all been just a cosmic joke, the first comet really being the only comet. She could still feel a charge in the air, but she wondered if it was just a lingering effect from the first comet. "Do you think there'll be more comets?" she asked Benjen.
"Can't be certain, but I assume so. Legends say thousands of them crowd the night skies during the Istran noon, which should occur some 75 years from now. I'm guessing we'll see a gradual increase over time."
They had seen no further signs of soldiers, for which they were grateful, but the fact seemed to disturb Benjen. He was nervous, edgy, and constantly looking for signs of the Jean.
"I know there are more soldiers following us. I'm almost certain the man who died in the marsh wasn't alone, but I can't understand why they don't attack. They're more heavily armed than we are, and they have to know that. They know where we are, and they've had time to bring a larger force here," he said.
"They may be heavily armed, but I bet none of them has ever changed the course of a river or knocked down the side of a mountain like I saw Catrin do,"
Strom said. His words sounded strange to Catrin, like something from a fireside story.
"But they knew they were coming here to face the Herald,"
Benjen replied.
"They must have known she would have great power. I don't think they're totally reacting out of fear, although I do agree they have good reason to be cautious. I still think they must have some other reason for following us, but not attacking."
"Perhaps they're bringing more troops here to confront us,"
Chase said.
"Maybe the terrain has just delayed them. We should remain watchful."
"Maybe they don't need to attack us now because they already know where we're going," Osborne observed. "They're probably just waiting for us to walk into an ambush."
Benjen nodded and hesitated before he said,
"You may be right, but I'm not sure. They may have other plans for us. Still, we'll need to be alert for signs of either ambush or pursuit."
Catrin spent a long day looking for fruits, nuts, and the herbs and spices they needed to replenish Benjen's medicinal supplies. When she returned to camp, her companion seemed to be better, a great relief after days of misery. There was a strange look in her eyes as she approached. Strom stared at her so intently that she finally couldn't stand it any longer.
"What are you looking at?"
she asked Strom, more sharply than she'd intended.
"I'm looking at your necklace, Cat. It didn't look like that when you first showed it to us. It was all milky and dull. And now it's—"
Chase finished the sentence for him.
"It's just beautiful."
Catrin lifted the leather thong over her head and examined the carving, amazed by what she saw. The carved fish was now clear and almost lustrous. It caught the light and sent small prisms dancing around her. She ran her finger across it and found the surface smooth where it had seemed rough and porous before. Trying to find a reasonable explanation for the transformation of the small carving, she wondered if it had just been dirty and in need of cleaning. She tried to remember exactly how it had looked when she had first found it. It had seemed almost as if it were dried out rather than dirty.
"Maybe your swim cleaned it off,"
Chase said, which made better sense than anything else she had come up with, but Catrin wasn't so sure. She tried to put it from her mind, but in its place came anxious thoughts of Istra. Somehow, the light of a comet or a goddess, depending on how she chose to perceive it, gave Catrin access to powers of which she had no knowledge or aptitude. Through some unknown process, she knew she could gather the comet's energy and release it in devastating ways, but she didn't know how to control it. Only when her life was in danger did she even seem to have full access to it. Most of the time it was a distant dream, tickling her senses, then receding too fast to pursue. She needed to know how to use the energy without hurting anyone. If she did not learn to control her outbursts, it might kill her and everyone around her. It was an uncomfortable feeling, and it put Catrin on edge. Her mind whirled with questions and only a handful of answers, and those answers only spawned more questions. Trying to calm herself, she sat down and closed her eyes. Fears and anxieties cluttered her mind and prevented coherent thought.
"Are you all right, little miss?"
Benjen asked.
I have too many thoughts in my head to concentrate on anything, because other thoughts keep pushing themselves into my mind. It's frustrating, and I don't like it at all.
"I understand," he said with a slight nod of his head. "Let me try to help. There are many techniques you can use to quiet your mind and get a clearer view. Would you like me to teach you some of what I know?"
Yes, please. Would you?
Benjen told them all to sit in a circle around the fire, directing Catrin to sit directly across from him. Sitting with his legs crossed and his arms relaxed, he put his hands on his knees, palms facing up. The others followed his example.
Close your eyes and concentrate on slow, steady breaths to the count of 7. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Keep your eyes closed and relax your muscles," he said, watching them. "You need to relax a bit more, little miss. You're as rigid as stone. On every exhale, concentrate on your muscles becoming looser."
Catrin tried to calm herself, but the harder she tried, the more tense she became, and she grew angry with herself for not being able even to relax properly. How could she ever hope to control her power if she could not even control her own state of mind? Realizing her fists were tightly clenched, she opened her eyes with a frustrated sigh. The others still had their eyes closed and looked relaxed. Benjen's eyes met hers.
"Perhaps we should try another technique that can be useful when your mind refuses to be quiet. When our heads are full of thoughts, it can be nearly impossible to suppress them. It's often better to deal with each thought individually as they come to you. Not all of them are pleasant, but we have to learn to accept them. They are a part of us. We should deal with them and try to understand them, but at the very least, we should accept them. I want to teach you an ancient exercise. First, close your eyes and begin your breathing again. When a thought comes to you, grab onto it and accept it. Recognize it as your own and try to understand why you are thinking it. Picture it as a small ball of energy. Hold your hands out and cup that energy with your palms. Examine the energy and analyze it until you come to know it. When you are comfortable thinking about it, take a deep breath, and when you exhale, release that energy into the universe. Your thoughts are your own, but your pain and suffering can be eased when you let the universe help, and your joy and happiness can be shared with the whole of existence. Your hope can go to every part of creation. By sending out your thoughts, you will feel less alone with your feelings. You can help others find their happiness, and you will receive help dealing with your troubles."
Catrin was surprised by his philosophical words. She had never heard him speak that way, even in his previous lessons about meditation. She tried to concentrate on taking his advice rather than analyzing it, but concentrating was a challenge. Breathing deeply, searching for calm within the violent storm of her thoughts and emotions, she became detached from the world, transported to a place of her own making that was comforting yet unfamiliar. Letting the thoughts swirl around her for a moment, she tried to find her center and braced herself for the onslaught. A feeling of anger and betrayal flashed into her consciousness. It was hot and painful, and further images of anguish and pain came to the fore. She remembered the townie's abuse of her and her friends. Visions of the attack on Osborne played through her mind. Then her dreamlike vision moved on to another scene, the townspeople challenging her father and accusing her of being a witch. Images of the invading army hammered her until she almost lost her focus. After a deep breath, she accepted the anger that was part of her. Releasing the thought as she exhaled, she blew it away from her. While floating between thoughts for a moment, she was surprised by the lull in the maelstrom of her consciousness. She felt a great release from the thoughts she had accepted. She chose to persist, believing she was ready for her next thought. It did not take long before it drifted in from somewhere in the back of her mind. This was a warm, comforting image, however, and it felt secure and safe. She realized that thought was Benjen. She envisioned him with his salt and pepper beard, his long black hair with streaks of gray pulled back with a leather thong. She saw his strong features and muscular build. Pouring herself into the meditation, she concentrated on that thought, building it up for a huge release. She felt great gratitude to Benjen for protecting her, for being her friend and mentor, and for caring so much for her. She let the thought expand to include all those around her, then to all those she had left behind. To all who had ever been kind to her, she sent out this thought as a gift of thanks. With her next exhale, she let it pour from her. Catrin floated blissfully above her consciousness, having experienced a massive, gratifying, and unexplainably beautiful release of tension.
"Your minds have become very quiet now,"
Benjen said in a low and rhythmic voice, hardly more than a whisper.
"Focus your consciousness. I want you to picture a strawberry. Focus on the details rather than the whole. Envision the colors and textures. Picture the seeds and leaves until every detail is complete."
Catrin heard his words somewhere in her mind, and she tried to comply. She began to visualize the strawberry, and soon she tasted the sweetness of the freshly picked fruit, strawberry jam, and strawberry rhubarb pie. All her memories of strawberries permeated the thought, but she was brought out of her meditation by the sound of Chase laughing and talking excitedly.
"That was great! I'm telling you, I could actually taste strawberries. And strawberry jam," Osborne added. "I tasted pie," Strom said with a grin. "Hey, Cat, do you remember the time you tried to shove strawberries up my nose?" Chase asked, and Catrin laughed. She'd been thinking about the same thing.
"Did any of you experience anything else?"
Benjen asked.
"When we first started, I felt angry," Osborne said. "I remembered the way I was attacked and the way Catrin was treated. I felt a lot like that too," Chase said. "But then I got to thinking about how Benjen has protected us and kept us safe, and then I felt like I was a protector too." "Me too," Strom added, and Osborne nodded.
Catrin sat back, wondering if it was all coincidence. Could they all have been thinking the exact same things? Benjen met her eyes.
"I didn't want to say anything without some confirmation, but Catrin's powers are beginning to manifest in different ways," he said. "During your meditation, I could actually see the energy above Catrin's palms. It's difficult to describe. It shifted and moved, but I got a general sense of what she was thinking. It seems she was able to influence our thoughts."
"She can control people's minds?" Osborne asked, his face pale.
"I don't think she has any control over our thoughts or any way to read them. It does seem, however, that she can project her emotions to those around her,"
Benjen said.
"I didn't try to make you think those things," Catrin objected. "Those were the things I was thinking about, but I just concentrated real hard on them. That's all. I wasn't trying to influence your thoughts, honest." Her voice was practically pleading now. "And I'd never try to read your minds.
Sometimes I can sense people's emotions, but I don't even do that intentionally.
We know you wouldn't do anything like that on purpose, Chase said. You should guard your thoughts more closely from now on, though. Try not to concentrate that hard on anything you want kept secret.
Well said,
Benjen said.
I need to see this for myself, Catrin said. I'm going to try to do it again.
Benjen did not discourage her, and the others looked as if they wanted to see it, so she took a deep breath and centered herself. The excitement made the meditation as difficult as her previous frustration had, but she closed her eyes and concentrated. This was important. This was an opportunity to learn something about her powers, a chance to take control of her life. Hope, excitement, and curiosity were predominant in her thoughts, and she focused on them.
Look now,
Chase whispered. It nearly cost Catrin her concentration, and she kept her eyes closed until she regained her focus. Slowly, she opened them. The light was almost blinding, but soon she could see a ball of energy floating above her cupped palms. Like a shimmering jewel with countless facets, it was exquisite. It spun and danced in her hands, constantly changing. The more excited and fascinated she became, the larger and brighter it grew. When she could no longer contain it, she tossed it into the night sky, where it burst into a cloud of twinkling lights no larger than grains of sand. They dimmed and disappeared before reaching the ground, but the air was charged with excitement.
That was amazing,
Chase said.
I'd have to agree,
Benjen added. Catrin's mind raced with possibilities and questions. What else could she do with her powers? What other abilities might she stumble on? The thoughts were as terrifying as they were exhilarating. Even after she retired to her bedroll, she lay staring up at the stars, hoping whatever power she found next would not destroy anything or kill anyone.